symposium. New season we're doing right now. We're going to be doing new topics. Today is going to be about cryptocurrency. It's kind of another hot topic one. It's been on a crazy run right now. People are saying, what is it? Should I get into it? People kind of know what crypto is, but we kind of want to go into some of the details and some of the future usages we see in it. So when you're talking about cryptocurrency, you have to start with, well, what is cryptocurrency? Well, before that, you have to figure out what is money. Would you agree?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why a lot of people have trouble wrapping their minds around cryptocurrency and blockchain, and it's because you hear it a lot, especially from people who are like in the financial industry, and you'll hear the saying a lot that it doesn't have any intrinsic value, which is kind of comparing it to like stocks. Like you want to invest in a company that has some value, and they're saying, well, what is like Bitcoin? It doesn't do anything. It's just digital currency. But that's where it gets interesting, is because I would argue that it does have value, but it has value as a form of money. It has better properties of the ideal form of money than any other system that we've used in the past as money, and I think that's where it gets its value from.
Yeah, all right. So where did money start? Well, money replaced the barter system, right? The barter system before was, I make shoes, so I want to trade these shoes to, the guy who makes the bread, right? Because I need bread for myself. The problem is, like how many loaves of bread is worth one pair of leather shoes, right? It's like, oh, you give me bread for a year, whatever. That's an inefficient way to conduct exchanges, essentially, right? Money then came into it to solve that issue where it was originally probably around things they had around them, right? Like shiny things, gems, stones, whatever. Usually something rare is what you would like currency to be. uh, you want to pick up
So
anywhere in there?
yeah, so right there, you just defined two important properties of money. One being that it's divisible, like you said, how many shoes is a banana worth, right, or vice versa, and the other is that it's rare, scarce, where we can't sticks or branches would be bad to use as money because they literally grow on trees. So there's an influx of money. You can grow. You don't want to use leaves as money because you can grow as many leaves as you want, and now leaves aren't worth that much. So you want something that's scarce and something that's divisible. Now, the more divisible it is, the better. And that's one of the problems with gold. So gold was not the original form of money. There was plenty of different forms of money, but gold was probably the biggest and most widespread adopted form of money for
Yeah.
that reason, because it was rare, and because it was relatively divisible compared to some other things. Now, when it comes to how divisible it really was, not that great compared to what we have now in paper currency, because if I have an ounce of gold on me, and maybe the thing you're selling me cost me a quarter ounce of gold, and you don't have enough gold to, you can't really break it up and separate it
Right.
into smaller pieces. So that's one of the bad things about gold, was that it wasn't divisible as much as we would have liked it to be. A couple other things about gold that made it a very good form of money, and a couple that made it not so good of a form of money. One is that it's durable. It's it's very hard to like destroy gold. It's that you're not going to accidentally drop it and it's no longer useful. It's durable. Another one is that it's fairly portable. And I say fairly because you can bring around a bag of gold and have gold coins and trade them in the marketplace. But if you want to transport a large amount of
A
gold, that's
lot
going to
of
be,
gold, that's very heavy, right?
that could be a problem. And so, um, but there's two other traits of money that are desirable: portability and what was the first one I said?
Divisibility.
Yeah, divisibility, portability. One bad thing about gold,
Durability as well, you brought up.
yes, durability. Yep. And one bad thing about gold is that you can counterfeit it. Now, there's ways of detecting whether or not it's counterfeit gold, but a trickster could maybe grab some silver, make it look gold, and pass it off to someone in a trade and pass it off as gold. One
You,
other
you,
good thing about it, or
you can
go ahead.
also gild it. You can also clip it.
Exactly. And then one other last thing about it is that it was easily measurable by weight. So if I had a scale, I could figure out exactly how much gold you gave me, which is obviously important. So that's why gold was used as money, and primarily because of its scarcity. That was the number one thing, was that it was found in the earth, it was mined, but at a rate that took a lot of work so that someone couldn't just hack the system and come in with a ton of gold and have twice as much gold as the rest of the economy and just, you know, basically shatter the whole system. That was impossible. So that's why it works so well. But the portability part actually caused a lot of the problems, which is why eventually, oh, also the security of it, whereas like, there's no real protection from someone just coming in and stealing your gold. But that's why eventually the banking system came to be, because they offered a great service. They said, we will secure your gold and we'll make sure it stays safe, and you won't have to carry it around with you everywhere you go, because you know it's safely right here in our bank. And in exchange, we'll give you some paperback receipts showing exactly how much gold you have. All you got to do is keep those, come back, return them, and you get your gold. There you go. Now the banks have now taken the gold from the people, put it in a safe spot, gave them a receipt, which is used to exchange with the bank back for their gold. And that's basically the first step to how we got to the current fiat system that we have now.
Right. So what is money supposed to be?
So what it's supposed to be is a ledger, really. It's not really supposed to be a physical object. Now, physical objects were the best way that we had so far of
Right, because
representing.
we you didn't have something like existing in the online world, right? That
Right, exactly.
would be able to, seamlessly transmit ideas of worth, essentially, right? Like, you had to use physical things because we didn't have non-physical things.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. Is it's really just a scoreboard. If you were to abstract back from
A
money,
scoreboard of what?
and exactly, and that's where the real value comes in. So it's a scoreboard of maybe time, maybe reputation, brand recognition. There's a ton of things that could actually have value, where money originally was proof that I have given value to someone else. That's how I got the money. They traded me gold, say, for my time, or to use my products or my horses, or maybe I did something really nice for them and they gave it to me as a gift in return, something like that. All it really is a scoreboard on society. So originally in a small society, it actually was ledgers. There was small communities where they would just use ledgers, and it would be the mayor of the town, or whoever was in charge would keep a big tablet. And if I wanted to trade you a couple apples, and then you could say, okay, well, I've got a few points, right? I've got a few points on the ledger. Let's go to the center of town. We'll write it up on here. Nick gives Richie 3 points. Now it shows my total, your total, and they would just keep track of that. And that's really what it is. But the problem was in that situation was that it would be centralized. Whereas, okay, so if I'm the one who's holding the ledger and I'm giving off all the points, who's going to stop me from saying, oh, wait, actually, Nick and Richie both just gave their points to me, and neither of them have any, and now I have all of them, and that would happen a lot, and so everything would get all screwed up, which is why they started using physical objects, because now it's like, okay, no one can rig the game. You can't tell me how many points I have. I know how many points I have because they're in my hand.
Yeah. So centralization versus decentralization. We'll just keep this in mind. That's going to be a running theme as it goes. One of the benefits of cryptocurrency, it's supposed to be, decentralized. No one's supposed to have physical control over the ledger, essentially.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
So one thing I kind of wanted to bring up, even before like bartering was a thing, which bartering essentially has kind of always been around. But even like before bartering, when it was essentially just small tribes or small like towns, groups, societies, whatever, like you said, that had like the ledger, like even before something like that, it was essentially just like communal living, right? Like some people want to totally do away with money. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, and it's small enough. in a small enough society or a small enough community, I should say, it's more of a yeah. It's kind of the you know the trust system kind of where it's like, all
Mm.
right, like, let's all just help each other out. It help if you do better, that means I'm doing better because I trust that if I help you out, you'll help me out.
On
But
a
I think that only works
on a
on
global sized society, I don't see money going away basically like ever. Do you?
no, not necessarily. I don't think that it would. I don't think that we could. I think money is actually one of the most fundamental and important technologies that has helped in our evolution, actually, because we're social creatures. We know that. We know that's a huge advantage that we have over the rest of the other species, is that we can coordinate in much larger groups to accomplish a much larger variety of tasks, productive tasks. And so I think money is the reason for that. There's been multiple different reasons. Religion probably at one time was a reason for that. I would say, people were able to band together in large groups because they all believed in the same God or gods. I think money is kind of a, if not a replacement, at least it's taking over partially in the last couple hundred years. Whereas, I can coordinate with a guy I don't know, and I can have him come pick me up from my house, drop me off at my friend's house. Never met him in my life. I'll never see him again. But he's willing to do that for me because he knows that I'll pay him through the Uber app, and
And because
he can trust me.
we both have a fundamental agreement. It's still a societal agreement essentially that this has value, right? That someone else will then be able to provide me a service, a good in the future with that thing, this non real quote unquote thing you just gave me.
Yes, and that is a really good point because when you look at money, a lot of, you hear that a lot where it's only valuable because everyone trusts it to be valuable, right?
Yes.
But part of it is, and now we can get back to the story where we left off. So everyone takes their gold and puts it in the bank, right? Well, this is where the trust starts to fall off because what do the banks do here? So I'm running a bank, I'm a businessman, and I come up with a good idea. I say, all right, no one like carrying around all their gold. Why don't they just leave it with me? I'll make sure it's secure. They don't have to carry it around. I'll give them a piece of paper. They can come return that paper, and I'll give them their gold back, and they can maybe give me a little transaction fee. Great business model. Such a good business model that everyone starts doing it. And so now most of the gold is in the banks, and most of the people have these paper receipts. And so what do the people do? The people are out and about at the markets, and they're not going to go back. If we want to engage in a trade now, I'm not going to go back, get my gold, exchange my receipt in, get my gold, bring it back to the market, give the gold to you so that you can take it, go to the bank,
Right. You're
put
just
it in,
going to
get a receipt.
trade the
I'm just going to
paper
give you the
tokens.
receipt.
Right.
Yeah, and so everyone starts doing that, and the banks notice that. No one's coming to get their gold. It's just sitting here. There's been gold just sitting here for years. Once in a while, someone comes in, takes a little bit, but no one really ever comes and takes all of it. So they thought of a great idea, Federal Reserve banking, where we've got all this gold sitting around. Here's what we'll do. We'll start loaning it out. So they would start loaning out the gold. So now, but by doing that, what they've done is they've created money out of thin air. Because if it's my gold that's sitting in there and I've got the receipt to prove it, that same exact gold just got loaned out to someone else and they've got the receipt to prove it. Neither of us realize that we've got this, our receipts are for the same gold. And so now there's way more money in the actual system than there is in the bank.
Right.
What happens here is people start realizing this and they say, oh, okay, wait a minute. They're loaning, once people catch on, they're loaning out the gold, and there's really, they don't have as much gold as there is paper receipts floating around the system. They start catching on. They say, all right, well, hang on, wait a minute. I don't know if I trust these guys. I'm going to run and get my gold back. Once that word spreads, now everyone's running to get their gold back, and there's not enough gold. So the people at the back come in with their receipts, and there's no gold. They don't have any.
Now, what is that paper worth?
That paper's nothing.
Right. And that's how devaluation of currency can happen.
Exactly. So, and then a good way to solve this they came up with was to create the central bank, which the central bank, their original purpose was to, when something like that were to happen, they would then take out loans from one bank, loan them to the other. They would kind of act like a middleman to make sure, because the banks realize, look, if a bank is going down over there, that's going to spread panic and fear. So my bank might come down too. I might have people rush into mine too. So
Right.
their
So
job
that
was to make sure that the banks don't go down because they
and then you
all would work
right.
together to make sure it doesn't go down.
And then you start pooling risk, right? Is what you're doing. You're mitigating your own risk by pooling it with everyone else's. Uh, the problem with that then becomes if there's everyone pooling risk on these same risky ventures essentially. If at one point it becomes one big part of it is going to fall, it will all fall because it is all interconnected.
Exactly. So if part of it falls, it all falls. Now, this has been going on for so long. How has this not happened? How do we not see this? The answer is that we did see it. We saw it very recently, relatively. We saw it during the Nixon presidency when foreign countries tried to take out all of their gold reserves from the United States Treasury, and Nixon announced that we're no longer trading dollars for gold. That was the equivalent of the bank saying, oh yeah, that receipt we gave you for all this gold, we're not accepting it anymore. It's our gold. You can't have it, even though you have the receipt for it that supposedly was supposed to be able to be exchanged for it. Weird part about this is after this happened, the stock market goes up. No panic, no collapse. Everything keeps moving. Stock market goes up. The money became worthless, at least in its old sense. What's the money backed by anymore? It's not backed by anything really, other than anyone who owes taxes to the government has to pay it in U.S. dollars. That creates a demand for U.S. dollars. Any other countries who have taken out loans in U.S. dollars need to repay those loans in U.S. dollars. That creates a demand.
Anyone who wants to buy oil has to buy it in U.S. dollars.
Yeah, the petrodollar, exactly. And so there's all these kind of weird things that make the U.S. dollar valuable. And what is it backed by? It's backed by loans taken out in its own currency. It's not really backed by anything scarce or finite at all. And that's why what we now see is inflation through the roof, as we talked about earlier, where they can print as much money as they want, and then they can just tax you to suck it back up into the system. But they can't tax you too much because if they do that, then the stock market starts to fall, and then everyone starts to panic. So they got to keep it just right. But once it starts getting out of control, very very difficult to correct. And that's where, after that kind of long money speech there, that's where we get to blockchain, because blockchain solves this problem for, I think, the first time in human history. Whereas we are going all the way back to the ledger system before gold. It's just a ledger now again, except the problem that the original ledger system had, which was whoever controls the ledger can screw around with it and screw people out of their money. That problem has been solved now.
Yeah, that problem solved. Even the divisibility issue is solved because even back then it was just units essentially. Now it's extremely finite units. Decimal points upon decimal points. So you can actually measure things. It's societally useful because if one small, we said the ledger system could work for one small group of people, but on a global scale, which we are now becoming as a society, as a globalized society. It's something that everyone can use so long as you have internet access, so long as you have a wallet.
Yep, exactly. A global ledger. It's transparent, so it's not like one person can go in there and change the code. It's decentralized, and it's a very interesting technology. The way they do it, great math, great math. But another great thing about it is that it's not inflationary. I actually think this might eventually become a bad thing because you want a little bit of inflation. But realistically, as of now, it is kind of a hedge against inflation, where we were talking earlier about how prices have doubled over the past 5 years for simple things like going out to eat. It's twice as much. Rent is twice as much. And if you had savings, and we looked at it earlier, the value of the dollar has gone down 20 times. So, 5 cents worth of purchasing power is what the current US dollar is. It would be worth 5 cents like 80 years ago. If you had saved up all of your money in a savings account over the past 60, 80 years,
You've
you wouldn't have
lost.
saved much. You've lost. Yeah,
Yes.
you've lost a lot of your purchasing power. Blockchain's a great hedge against that because it's built into the code where there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. And so there's no way for anyone to print more. There's no way for it to inflate. There's really no way. It's realistically it's a deflationary currency, which could cause some other problems too. But the more we're innovating on the blockchain, then the more hopefully the more and more solutions come up as they have been over the past decade or so.
Yeah, no. One thing we had talked about, now going a little past money now, but into cryptocurrency. We said before, Bitcoin right now may not even be the best Bitcoin that's available, right? We don't know what a globalized cryptocurrency would actually look like, really. Like how that would be implemented. It's and any current coin that's out there, I can't say, can you say is worth anything intrinsically like right now?
It's hard to say. You can come up with theories and try to make sense out of it, but it is very. I mean, everything's uncertain, um, and I know a lot of them. The blockchain developers are worried about quantum computers now because the whole idea of the blockchain is that it's built on an encryption network where no one can really hack into it. But with quantum computers, it's basically going to be able to hack into all types of things, and so it's like, will it be able to hack into the blockchain? Possibly. And so it's that might be a little bit down the line, but you couldn't say for certain no. But part of the reason why I would say is because we're used to measuring things in dollars, and so that's why it's hard to measure blockchain or Bitcoin, say for example. It's like, well, what is it worth? Well, what is the dollar worth? Well, it's worth $1. Yeah, but it's $1 is worth different things every year, and same with Bitcoin, where it's you can compare it to the dollar, and it's going up. But is it really going up in value, or is the dollar just going down? Because we know the dollar is going down, and so some
Right.
of it's got to be that. And so when you see a lot of these people who are trading these cryptocurrencies, a lot of times they won't even look at dollars. They have no idea what it costs in dollars. They're looking at how much is Bitcoin compared to Ethereum, another cryptocurrency, or
Right.
they'll compare them to each other.
Is the only thing stopping crypto right now from being worth value just widespread use, essentially? Adoption?
There's that. There's yes, it's definitely adoption because it does seem like a scam. Anyone who's thought it's a scam, I'm not blaming you because I thought it was a scam at first too. It seems like a scam. It doesn't seem to make any sense. It took a very long time of looking into it and trying to figure things out a little bit by a little bit over the course of years where I started to think like, okay, this isn't a scam necessarily. Some of them are scams. I mean, a lot of them are scams. But the technology is valuable. The underlying technology is valuable. And so there can be scams built on the technology. There can be valuable use cases built on the technology, and it's somewhat difficult to figure out which is which without doing a little research into them and really understanding what's going on behind the scenes. Um, but yeah, I think
Me,
as a
me
form of currency, it is more valuable than the U.S. dollar simply for the fact that you can save it. If I want to put my savings, I take a little bit of my savings, put it in a savings account every paycheck, right? 25 years down the line, I have less purchasing power than I would, or than I would have if I were to take in a little bit of it and put it into a cryptocurrency that is by design going to be anti-inflationary.
right. So we had said Bitcoin might not be the best Bitcoin right now. The value of Bitcoin might be $0,
Yeah, and
in all possibility.
and I have a couple theories as to why that is, and but it's hard. It's very difficult. Everyone's got their own theories, and a lot of very smart people have come out saying it is very valuable. Others have come out saying that it's not very valuable compared to others like Bitcoin Cash, which Bitcoin Cash is basically the same thing as Bitcoin, only in my opinion it's better. But everyone has their own way of looking at it. But that is very true that it might not be Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has the big advantage of being like the main number one branded
Yeah.
crypto. Like when
It
people
has
who aren't
it has
familiar with it,
first movers advantage, like to the nth degree, for sure.
yeah, right. Like people who have no who haven't looked into it and they just keep hearing about it, most likely don't know what they think Bitcoin and blockchain same. They're just different words for the same thing.
Hmm.
When really what the blockchain is the decentralization technology, the decentralized ledger. That's what the blockchain is, and it's a genius idea. Bitcoin was the first one, and there's been many more, but the idea is basically that rather than having, so let me explain it this way. I think this is the
Right.
best. Or go
Yeah,
ahead, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, 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 no. You got it. Rather, so we're going, I think, back to centralization versus decentralization, essentially. Bringing back that like the ledger system. Uh, what you don't want is a select group of individuals to have the power of this fiat system, essentially, right?
Yes, because so think about it as like if I wanted to send you money digitally, I can go through Venmo, say. But what I'm doing is when I'm uploading money into my Venmo account, I'm paying my money. So I might look at my screen and see that I have $100 in my Venmo, but I don't have $100. I've paid Venmo $100. It's no different than FanDuel or DraftKings, where you put money in there, you've got your money's gone. They have it now. And if for whatever reason they want to refuse to give you that money back if you try to take it out, they have every right to do that. This happened in Canada with the truckers' protests back. I think they were protesting the vaccines during COVID, where all of these different online exchange platforms like PayPal, I think GoFundMe was one of them, uh, because of what the Canadian government was saying, they gave them permission to freeze, or I think they strongly encouraged them to freeze the accounts of people who were donating to these truckers to help support the protests. So they freeze their accounts. Now they have no access to their money. Well, that means it's not their money. And anything digital, it's the same way. Where if I'm selling you, no matter what it is, you're putting money into what's called like an omnibus account, where it's no longer yours. It's like buying chips at a casino. You give the money, you have these chips, but if the casino decides they're not going to give you the money back for the chips, there's nothing you can do about it. They have every right to do that. It's the same way. And so what the decentralization aspect of it is that nobody can take it. It is yours. No one owns it. It's not through a center medium who is owning all the transactions. It's through a decentralized network of people who don't know each other, and they're all, whether it's proof of work or proof of stake, couple different ways of doing it mathematically, but they're all confirming that the transactions went through without having any connection to each other, without having any ability to alter the transaction or to stop the transaction from going through. If one miner or staker decided I don't want this transaction to go through, it's not going to do anything because there's hundreds of others who are going to allow it. So that's a big fundamental problem with digital transactions that it solves.
Yeah. So instead of, like you said, one party having all ability to uh, govern transactions, essentially, it's no, the technology is very intricate. I don't know, Gray, you probably know it better than me, but essentially, it's like every aspect is called a node, right? Uh, those branches of the tree essentially all have essentially like voting rights in a way you can think of it. So no party has more say than any other, aside from maybe if you get like 50+%. But
Yeah, yeah, and that is actually they call it like the 51% attack is what a lot of the crypto community talks about as one of the risks. But and that was mostly a risk back when Bitcoin was a new technology where there might have only been like a couple hundred people using it.
well, let's
Now I
let's
think
talk about
they're
let's talk
surpassed
about talk
that.
about that one a little bit if you want to. I mean, like,
Okay.
why is it that we said Bitcoin might not be all that great? The reason is it's expensive, actually. Not in terms of it's worth $100,000 right now. It is costly to use, essentially. The transaction uh, costs are very high. And do you want to get into why that is and why others might be better than it at this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's a little bit technical, and it's actually better. I would encourage anyone, or if I can, I'll try to throw up a visual because it's easier to visualize than it is to explain. But I'll do my best here. So, Bitcoin originally started off as a great idea. Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym of the man who came up with it, the man or possibly woman who came up with it. They wrote a white paper
We,
on
we
it
don't know
explaining
who
how
it
it worked.
is.
It is, yeah,
If
to this
anyone
day.
knows, Satoshi Nakamoto is an idea, essentially, right? It's
Yes, and
it's
that's a
V- it's
huge
V for Vendetta. Like it.
that, that is, and that's a huge part of it too. I think, which is the fact that there is no Elon Musk who's standing there saying, "Yeah, I saved the world." There's no
Right.
ego involved. It's an anonymous source who came up with an idea on the internet and said this. It was actually in response to the 2008 financial crisis, and he said, "I've come up with a way to stop this in the future." And a couple other people who didn't know no one knows who it is, and just other people on the internet, people on Reddit, whatever, they came across it and some smart people said, "Wait a minute, this is huge," and they got in it early back.
That in and of itself is a crazy thing. Like
I know.
we don't know who that is. That's one of the big mysteries, honestly, of our time, possibly.
And they also just disappeared for a while. They were in the on the internet and kind of like helping. Every a bunch of people started using it and coming up with ideas, and he was kind of in there messing around and teaching people and making comments and stuff like that. And I think it's been like 10 years since anyone's heard anything from Satoshi. And currently, Satoshi Nakamoto is holds
And
the largest amount of Bitcoin. In like they've got
the,
like so much. They're like trillionaires right now.
Satoshi is gone, and we are the poorer for it,
Hmm. But
possibly. But
anyway,
yeah, Satoshi's sitting on a huge stash, right? Like what? How much is it? 13, 14 million is the total reserve? Like
21 million
21
Bitcoin,
million, 21
the
million.
most it'll ever. And I can get into
Yeah.
how this works too. This was my
And
favorite
don't they
part.
have like a couple million or something?
They've got like yeah, yeah, like a couple million. So like I think like technically they're worth like a couple $1 trillion because of how much Bitcoin is
If they
held
haven't
on to.
touched that stash.
If it's yeah, if her and also the thing is say they're that's this is one of the big flaws with it is say that they're dead or they might have lost their computer that had it saved or it's gone. It's gone because
Yeah.
it's very difficult to access. You have to have a lot of security measures to get into it. And there's a what they I can't remember what they call it. It's like a secret code basically that you have to type in, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't access it. So that's one of the major problems is that people have been losing. Like people who bought Bitcoin in like 2010 are trying to access it. They can't access it. They lost their code, or it's like
I've
stored on the
I've
computer
I've
they
seen
can't get into.
I've seen videos of guys like I there's one person who has like hundreds or maybe thousands on like a USB or whatever. He's used 8 attempts to guess his like password or whatever out of 10. So he like some like insane like hacking companies like working on like trying to hack into it.
Yeah, no, that's one of the issues. But what was the original question
Anyways,
again?
we're just talking about Satoshi Nakamoto originally starting it out and how it kind of got hijacked a little bit at the beginning.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So really, the problem is scalability. And so in the original white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, his plan was to increase the block sizes. Now, strange kind of technical terminology here, but and I'm not a very technical guy either, but the basics of it is that all of the transactions that happen on this Bitcoin network, they all get put into these blocks. And it's what happens is there's a certain amount of transactions stored as data. They get put into these blocks, and then all of the decentralized miners, they call them, have to solve a very tough math problem that takes a lot of time, a lot of computing power, and they all have to solve it and get the same answer. And if you get the different answer, that means you're either lying or something's wrong with your computer or something. But when you get the same answer, that's how the transactions are approved. And however many people get the same answer, say 90% of people get one answer and 10% get the other, the system automatically determines that other one's wrong, the 90%, and it keeps going from there. And they're all linked through these chains. That's why it's called the blockchain. So it continues building on itself, whereas all of the transactions had to add up to the total, and they had to all be agreed upon by the majority of the miners in order to continue moving on. And whichever one is correct or at least agreed upon by the majority will continue to move on. Anyway, the problem becomes scalability because at the time, like I said, there was only a couple hundred people, maybe a couple thousand people using the network, and so they were able to get all of these transactions into these blocks. The computers were able to do the calculations that took a little bit of time, and they were able to get transactions done pretty quickly. But now the more people that do it, it basically gets bottlenecked. It's clogged up, and the computers, by the time they get the problem solved, it's backed up. It's like traffic basically, and there was a real easy solution to this, which was in the original white paper, which was to just expand the block size. So rather than being one, I don't know what it is, but say it's 1 gigabyte of data per block, just make it two, make it three, and then you can get more in there and it can be quicker. That was the original plan. Now there was a big civil war they called it in around 2016, 2017 as Bitcoin and blockchain was starting to grow in popularity, about whether or not we should keep it at one or make it bigger. And what happened was the what we know now is Bitcoin, what's trading on Coinbase as Bitcoin, decided to keep it the same and build on top of it. Now, this kind of, I think, causes problems because it takes away from the idea of the decentralized currency. Now you've got other companies building these systems on top of it. It's like the same thing, I think. It's like as if, your
So
banks were to
so
build something on top to help you transact. The whole point was we don't need the bank to help us transact. And then the
so
other
so,
ones,
so
last thing here.
the one sized block essentially isn't big enough. So what happened was middlemen would come in and sell essentially expedited service, essentially, right?
Yeah, it'd be like a software that's built on top of the blockchain. So it'd be kind of like Venmo almost, where it's like, okay, you instead of engaging, so if I'm frequently trading my Bitcoin, rather than having to wait, because right now it's either you wait a really long time or you pay a really large transaction fee, which totally destroys the whole purpose of it. If I'm going to say 7-Eleven and I'm buying a Slurpee and it's $4, but the transaction fee is $50, or I have to wait 24 hours till it goes through, this is now useless because they're not going to give me the Slurpee until they know that the money went through, and I'm not going to pay $54 for a Slurpee. This is useless now. So what they do is they build software on top of it where it's like, okay, rather than engaging in small transactions every time, you can just upload your money into this second layer software, and now it's in there. And so you don't actually have to trade on the blockchain. You can trade using this other service. And then when you want to convert back, then you can convert back. It's the same thing as like taking money out of your bank account, put it in your FanDuel, make all your bets on there. And then when you want to cash out, you can bring it back in. When you bring it back in, it might take 24 hours or cost a $50 transaction fee, but you don't have to do it every time. This ruins the whole thing, I think, because that was the whole thing they were trying to solve, was that there was a centralized kind of source that was operating and built on top of the what existed as the fiat currency. Now the other side of that is now known as Bitcoin Cash. It sells as BCH. What they did was the exact thing that Satoshi Nakamoto recommended. When the thing gets too big, you increase the block size. And so they forked. It's called the fork because they go two separate ways in the chain. So there's now two chains. One of them is Bitcoin. One of them is Bitcoin Cash. The one in Bitcoin Cash is still true to the original Bitcoin, which I think is better. But everyone has their theories. I think that one's better because you don't need to build on top of it. It still works the same way, and there is no transaction fees, or there are, but they're very small. They're cents. Cents, 1 cent, 2 cents, real small
Bit,
transaction fees as it
Bitcoin
was designed.
transaction fees are huge, dude. If you're selling like a decent chunk, you're paying dollars. You're paying a lot of dollars sometimes, like as opposed
Right.
to cents on the dollar, literally.
Yeah, and I mean, there's tons of other ones other than Bitcoin Cash who also have different innovations as far as how they make it cheaper. I mean,
So
having
so
that high of transaction fees, it makes it useless, and they need to figure out a way to do it. The thing is, actually, I take that back. They don't need to figure out a way to do it. Satoshi already figured it out, but they chose to go a different route than what he suggested in his original paper, and that's why you see these high transaction fees. If you go to Bitcoin Cash, there is no transaction fees. If me and you both had a crypto wallet, I could send you as much money as I want. Right now, it would cost me 5 cents max, and it would go through no third party, and it would be instant. So
yeah, so it's also interesting. There's different like types of cryptocurrencies, right? So like Bitcoin is supposed to be like an actual like currency, like a dollar essentially. There's other ones, like Monero is supposed to be like all like totally private money. Essentially, it's all about like privacy. It's not as much supposed like for like a transactional purpose. Like even like isn't Ripple like the one of like the big banks?
yeah, Ripple. I don't know too much about Ripple. I have a little bit of that one, but it is really it's very fast. I know that it's very fast and very low transaction fees. I
Yeah.
don't know too much about the underlying technology, but yeah. Well, that actually this is a good point. So as far as it being a currency in general, what is the underlying technology? I can see an argument where it's not a currency, really. Its first major use case is for currency, but the underlying technology is really a decentralized database. It's decentralized information, which is not controlled by one central source, and it's confirmed. It's. I read a book called The Truth Machine about blockchain, which is kind of what it is. It's a truth machine. The reason it's valuable for currency is because it's decentralized truth. It's proof that I sent you this money or that I owed you this money. That's what it fundamentally is. Now that might be years and years down the road before we start seeing it applied to other things, but that's kind of a revolutionary idea, I think.
Yeah, no, it's I like that the truth machine. That's pretty good, right? Because one other application you hear a lot is like legal contracts, right? Since this is totally binding, right? No one can shirk like on their responsibility in like a blockchain agreement. It's guaranteed, like trust in one another essentially.
Yes. Now, could that go wrong though? Because that's one thing that I'm kind of scared about is like if you think about, if a guaranteed truth machine,
Right.
just abstract out for different aspects of life. It's like, do you really want a truth machine? Is
Yeah.
that could that be? I can see there being a bad side too. Like I can see that causing problems. I definitely think there's more good than bad for sure. But
That's a good philosophical question. Do you want an absolute truth machine? We could talk about that. One thing I was thinking about being worried is what if the truth machine is like wrong? Like 90% of people have to like confirm something or whatever, or 51% maybe. How
yeah,
many times are 51% of people wrong about something? Like,
exactly. Yeah. So it really by calling it a truth machine, it really redefines truth as the opinion of the majority. You know,
yeah,
which could be a bad thing, but it's definitely got very good applications. And I mean, social media platforms I think is a big one because and by truth machine, one thing that it is it's that there's no one in charge of redoing the rules. So like in back in 2020, there was problems with the conservatives were complaining we're all getting banned from Twitter for saying things that are deemed as hate speech, but really they're just political opinions. And that's been a problem all throughout history. Whereas you could say, oh, you're not allowed to say certain things, but then it's like, okay, could that be used as a tool to just kind of suppress your opponents? What what this would be is there is no one person in charge who decides what you get to say on the social media platform. All the users vote on what you get to say on the social media platform, and their vote is word. There's no one has the control, no one has the power to manipulate it because it's all automated. Once everyone votes, it automatically makes that the rule versus
how,
having
how
someone there pressing the buttons.
how would that work though? Like the majority of a social network site, like that sounds like the you could get 52% of people saying uh, some crazy stuff though. I don't know, like
Right.
not being allowed to voice a certain opinion that might not even be a crazy opinion.
Right. No, I mean, so it would be like think about like the terms and conditions. So if it's on a blockchain, hypothetically, and now this is years down the line, but if it's on a blockchain, there could be say one social media that says no censorship, anything goes, and then people are maybe saying a bunch of crazy stuff on there, and they're getting a tons of views and shares, and there's a large say 52% of the people are saying no, we don't want this on here. This is ruining our experience. So then we can all vote and say we want the terms and conditions to change. You're not allowed to say these certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And if 52% of the people do that, the terms and conditions now change. Now, the other 48%, if they disagree with that, they have two options. One is they can deal with it and just stop saying whatever it is that they're not allowed to say anymore, or they can fork off, which is just basically it's when the blockchain
Right.
splits into two chains. They could fork off and say, no, all right, fine. What Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash did, Bitcoin Cash forked off. They said, you're not going to increase the block size. We want to do it. We're going to fork off and start our own that's built off here. The people who want to go on there and say whatever they want, they don't want any censorship. They can fork off, and now they've got their own. And so, it's
You can literally go ahead and fork off.
yeah, go right ahead and fork off if you don't like it. And that's pretty good actually. That's yeah. I mean that could be the new the social media slogan is if you don't like it, fork off. But um, but yeah. Anyway, now you might have two separate social medias. That's a good thing, I think, because what's the problem right now? Social medias are dominated by big tech giants. And it's like, it used to be a thing that used to always say, um, if you don't like the rules, go and make your own. That's what, on the conservative side, everyone would be complaining about the censorship, and they say, oh, if you don't like it, go make your own. And it's like, well, they'd be mad because it's like, well, you have all these network effects, you have a monopoly, and so, if I
What,
want to
what
make
could
my own, it's tough, but
could
now
could
it's
could
not that
that
tough.
could that result in echo chambers becoming even worse though?
It definitely could. It definitely could. But it also, I think, would result in the best system winning because think about it. So in order to get on the platform, you'd have to buy the coin, right? And there's coins like this where they're not really meant to increase in value. They're just meant to give you voting power. So say if I wanted to make an account, I have to pay money to get my voting power. Now, if my platform becomes, you know, really really successful and everyone wants to be on it, now my account, my coin that I bought increases in value versus if no one wants to use mine anymore and it tanks, it decreases in value. So there's an incentive for the people who buy in and who are engaging in part of the system. There's incentive for them to actually do what is going to be most successful in terms of bringing everyone else along.
To get more users, to get
To get
more
more users, to want
transactions.
more people to
Yeah.
feel like this is, you want to get people who think this is the right idea. You want to get people to agree with you, but not necessarily do you want to get people to agree with you. You want to agree with as much people as possible. You want to open it up so that in that scenario that I gave, I think the platform that censored the people and versus the platform that said no one's censored. I think the one that says no one's censored ends up taking a lot of the value away from that one because they would attract more people. Now, maybe not, maybe so. It depends. Or you might end up with two combating platforms. But either way, the people are the ones who decide. It's not Elon versus Zuckerberg who are deciding. It's the people who are deciding. There is no Elon or Zuckerberg. No one owns the network. The network is owned by all the people who use it.
Right. Right. What other, uses of blockchain do you think there might be? We said social media, like contracts for sure. I mean, smart contracts are already a thing. That's one that's already taking over. Um,
There's, I think, voting eventually. Maybe government.
yeah, we talked. I mean, phew, government. I mean, that's.
Combine AI with the blockchain, you got a pretty good government. If it's scale, down the road. Obviously, scalability is a big problem. But
Because then like the judicial system can be part of that as well. Like every single ruling on this case is already in the system, right? It can harken back exactly. Maybe one problem with that being maybe things don't change, as much.
mhm.
It's because if it's just self-referential in that way.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's trying to predict is tough. I know. So they do have some decentralized games, which is kind of a cool concept, where you can buy like picture Fortnite, except um, when you buy into you buy a new Fortnite skin, say, or you buy some, I don't know, I haven't played that in a while, but you buy whatever in there, like in-game purchases. It would actually be like you can resell that thing for more money because there's only a certain amount of them in the game, or and so it's like, and the players of the game kind of vote on the rules of the game. That's a pretty cool
Yeah.
application. I know supply chains are really benefiting from it. At least, they're starting to, because of that truth machine aspect, where it no longer takes a human to confirm, yes, I received that, because it's there's there's a digital twin, what they call it, on the blockchain, where as soon as the thing passes through to this location, there's a sensor that puts it on the blockchain. So like everyone in a supply chain, I work for a construction company. We've got subcontractors who have their subcontractors, who have their vendors, who have their manufacturers, who have their material suppliers, who have their people who refine the material to people who mine the
Right.
materials. Like, okay, so realistically, you can look and see exactly where that is. If it's supposed to be here in 12 weeks and we're on week 13. It's not here yet. We could look at it, and it's on the blockchain. You know, nobody's lying. No companies are lying because it's on there. So it's, there's there's plenty of applications that I'm sure we probably haven't even thought of yet either. But those are the few that I've seen.
Yeah. Do we do crypto versus blockchain? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, right now. Like, you know, cryptocurrency itself is a very different thing than what the blockchain is. What we just said, the blockchain is that what is built upon, cryptocurrency is built upon the blockchain, right? Blockchain is that essential, component that is probably far more valuable than any cryptocurrency right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. So blockchain is the technology. So it's like the possibilities with blockchain, cryptocurrency is like the first big application that is possible on the blockchain. It's kind of like I heard a good friend of mine who we should maybe have on here as a guest. He started his own cryptocurrency company a while back, and he's super into. He's way more technical when it comes to this stuff than I am when it comes to his knowledge of it. But he described it as what got him into it was he saw that there was a decentralized network that had an unknown amount of use cases. And he said the last time that he saw that was the internet. Because when the internet came about, no one really knew what it was. I mean, there's a great, it's one of my favorites,
Yeah.
a great news article from like 1986 or something. It's awesome. I gotta pull it up. But it says on there it's like a Wall Street Journal or something like that, some speculative investment news source, and it says why the internet is a fad, and it says
Hmm.
I can never imagine someone getting their mail or getting their news on the internet. This is just a ridiculous thing. People had no idea what it was going to be used for. And I think that's what blockchain is too. It's a different form of the internet. It kind of is a different form of the internet that incentivizes people to participate in a democratic way versus that compared to currently it's more of a monopolistic way, So like email is a good example. Email was decentralized. I don't need to have Gmail. I can have any different type of email, and I can communicate with anyone with an email. I can make up my own email. I can make it at modernsymposium.com, and I can send an email to someone with a Gmail or someone with any other. I don't need to use Gmail. The problem was these companies started developing, and they were able to pay software developers and pay all of these people and have all these resources to build up so that they were able to build on top of this bottom layer, which was email and websites. Now, Facebook, Google, they're able to build on top of this. Google builds a search engine on top of this, and they can afford to fund all of these different people who can provide all their labor. They have all the resources. So I'm not going to go and use like whatever the like Netscape or whatever the original search engine was
Right.
because it's nowhere near as good because all of these big companies with all the resources were able to put all of the resources into this and make it way better. The, the
Yep.
problem why
Give
go
me
ahead.
1 minute. Go. Give me 1 minute here. My bad. Sorry.
Okay, yeah,
My,
you're
my,
good, you're
my
good.
car lights are on apparently.
All right, quick break. So we were talking about what were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about how the decentralized part of it, the big thing that a lot of people don't get, and it took me a while for this to click, was that the internet started off as decentralized. Currently, the
Hmm.
internet is dominated by a bunch of they call them the modern day robber barons. Whereas, if you want to email someone, you're going to use Google, and if you want to access the internet, you're either going to use Microsoft on your computer or Apple on your phone. Or if you want to share something on the internet, you're probably going to use either Google for YouTube or Facebook for Instagram posts or TikTok. And so these companies have taken over because they've made it better. They've had the ability to develop. Whereas all of these non-for-profit companies that started email and that started the internet, they're all decentralized and it's all, remember back in the day people would have blogs? Remember,
Right. Right.
like, you remember Joe D had a blog, our boy Joe D, Healing Roots. He had like a blog. He started it, it was his own page, he owned it. It was like a blog. And you could do that, but no one's going to go look at your blog because they're going to go look at people's Facebook posts because Facebook made it so much better. The reason why blogs didn't blow up instead of Facebook is because there was no investment into the blogs. It was people, it was people, small companies maybe, there's no reason to invest. With blockchain, there's a reason to invest. There's a reason to invest into these decentralized things because your investment, you own your investment. So if I invest into a blockchain that has really good rules that I like, and that one does really well, I see a return on my investment. And so
What
it's able
return
to
on your
bring
investment are you getting there?
well, because so say like investor capital gains, investment return. If I so there's a great example of this that I like. It's called the Brave search engine, I believe is what it's called. And there's a coin that sells called BAT, and it's built on a blockchain, and it's a search engine. And the idea of the coin, which I think is a great idea, is that rather than so you know how you go on your search engine, you get ads, right?
Hmm.
On this one, you can turn ads off and you own your data. There's no company that's harvesting all your data, everything you search, and selling
Okay.
it to ad companies. There is that. There's not that. Or you could turn it on, and if you turn it on, then you're going to get hit with ads, and they're going to take your data. But in return for your data, you're going to get paid in BAT. And so BAT is a coin based on a blockchain that's providing payment for your data. Rather than having Google just take all of your data and you get nothing, you're getting paid for it. Now, if I wanted to invest in this software because I think it's a great idea, or the search engine, I should say, I don't invest in the stock market for the company that's making it. I don't invest in the stock of Brave search engine. I buy a bunch of BAT because that gives them more funding to help develop this new search engine. Therefore, it can be better, and hopefully, if enough people invest in it, it can eventually compete with Google to be the best search engine. Now, if it's the best search engine, there might be people using it who don't even realize what they're doing. They don't even realize, oh, I'm using this one because it doesn't take my data. They might be using this one because it's just better and easier, and I get better results than I do on Google.
Hmm.
That's the idea. But investors can buy the coin. If they do that, the coin will increase in value. And so they'll be able to, once they feel like it, take their money out, walk away with some gains. Meanwhile, it was never a centralized search engine. I think that is like the beauty of it, and that's where it's the applications are. Who knows? I mean, there's tons of applications.
So in that coin, I'm just kind of curious about that one now. That sounds pretty cool. Like you can use it for free, right? You can have it without them collecting your data and selling it,
Yep.
but then you can turn on. They would then sell your data if you turn on like being paid in the BAT.
Yeah. So yeah, you have an on and off switch where if you
Okay.
don't want to see any ads, you don't want them taking any of your data, then they won't. But if you don't care, you could turn it on. You're going to see ads, but every time you see an ad and every all the data they take, there's a certain small amount of money that adds up, and you get paid in BAT, which
Okay.
you can then sell for real money.
Right.
And I say real money, even though
Right.
the
Right.
U.S. dollar is faker money than the blockchain money, I think. But anyway, there's a value to it. Whereas if I want to invest in this company, I don't have to buy stock in Brave. I can buy BAT on Coinbase or on any exchange, and now I have BAT. And the more people are using it, the more valuable BAT becomes.
Right. What is real money then? Because there's a lot of real monies out there. You can you
Well,
can you can get
good question.
you can get goods and services for something that has basically no practical value in any sense, with a lot of different types. Some of them
I
being cryptocurrencies.
I guess there really isn't a real money, but there's just better money than the last one.
Yeah, no,
Like maybe it's just
that's true. Yeah.
like my opinion would be that cryptocurrencies are probably the best form of money that we have yet. But I'm sure that that's the thing is 50 years down the line, there's probably going to be better money and maybe better cryptocurrencies built on blockchains, or maybe the blockchain itself is like, oh yeah, it takes too long, it's not efficient enough. We've come up with something better. Maybe that's the case, but I think it all comes down to the value of it, and it depends on what you want in your money. And it's like, do I want my money to be centralized and have an infinite supply and be difficult to divide and easy to counterfeit, or do I want, the opposite? And it's those characteristics of it which are, they you want a set list of characteristics for your money, which makes it better than the previous money. It's like a technological advancement.
Right.
It's like ChatGPT is better than Google, I think, because it gives you a direct result, direct answer, rather than giving you a link to a site that you have to then go and read through and find it. So it's quicker. It saves
Also,
you time.
Google is just pretty bad now overall. Like I don't really know why, but Google never seems to have a straight answer for you anymore. Google has the AI thing now, which I don't really know how I feel about it. Like you read the AI and then it's like, all right, but can I get something that actually tells me what's going on?
Yeah. No, I kind of like the AI because it's good for a quick, hey,
It is
what
good for the
year did
quick.
this?
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, I usually keep ChatGPT open in a tab, and when I'm looking for a quick, I mean, I shouldn't say quick, but when I'm looking for like a concise answer on a certain question, much better rather than trying to dig through all the ads and the nonsense on Google. So but yeah, I mean, it's like we always say. I think when it comes to ChatGPT versus Google, it's a better mousetrap. I would say the same for blockchain currency. It's a better currency. It's it's got better characteristics. But
Right. Of all the acquirable or um, likable characteristics of currency, all the ones we brought up earlier. So we can go through them right now. Divisibility. It's got to be much easier to divide something virtually than it is, in the physical world, right?
so there's a real good one. Sorry to jump in real
Yeah.
quick. There's a real good one called IOTA, IOTA,
Uh huh.
and
Is
I'm
that
sure.
that's Internet of Things? Is that what that
Yeah,
one is? Yeah,
exactly. That's what I was going for. And what it specializes in is microtransactions because it's kind of, I think it's like ahead of its game a little bit
it is. Yeah.
because what it is, it's like, so say you're driving or say you've got a self-driving Tesla and no one's in it, right? It dropped you off at work. Now it goes, oh wait, it needs to charge. It's going to pull over and charge automatically, and it needs to pay the charging station automatically, but there's no human involved. And so and another one would be say.
The Internet of Things idea being, if anyone's unfamiliar, essentially everything is going to be connected to the internet, right? Your
Mhm.
fridge is going to be on the internet. It's going to see how low you are in groceries, and it's going to automatically, link to your Amazon account or whatever to drone deliver you in groceries, right? Your TV is going to be linked to every part of your house, right? Like everything essentially would be on the internet.
I've heard talks of this. I'm not 100% sure that this is actually a thing, but I've heard talks that there's something they're working on in the future. Whereas, so say we've got a bunch of self-driving cars, right? And one car is driving, is just going back home. It drops you off at work. It's heading back home. And another car is driving someone to the emergency room, and they're in traffic. They're trying to code them up so that this car can make micro payments to the other car to get out of the way and let them by.
Damn.
And that's what IOTA, the coin, is supposed to specialize in, is like micro payments between machines, which is nuts. But it's like,
Right,
it seems like
right.
100 years away. It's probably like 20. But yeah, that's like one good example there. But sorry, go ahead. All right, so
Oh yeah, so we said
first one was
divisibility, much better. What
visibility.
was
Yep,
another one we brought up? Portability. I think it's
that one's easy.
pretty easy to see that something you don't have to physically lug around with you is more portable than something that exists in the ether, right?
Hmm.
Rare. Takes the cake with ease, at least in theory. I mean, in practicality, like who knows, right? But rarity, the U.S. dollar, which is the global reserve currency, supposedly the best currency on the planet, is made out
Not
of
rare.
nothing. It's not very rare at all. It's becoming more and more bountiful by the minute.
Yep. I mean, and that's the thing about the blockchain too, is that you can make them as rare as you want. So like Bitcoin is one big benefit of it, is that it's entirely scarce. There will only ever be 21 million. Currently, I think there's like 19, but there'll only ever be 21 million. Um, Another one like Dogecoin is like, all right, there's no rarity, there's no scarcity at all. They can have as many Dogecoin out there as they want. So that, but that's like a meme coin. but that's right there in the white paper, and it's right there on, if you're able to read coding language, you can read it right there on the blockchain and see, oh, they can make as many of these as they want. So you know that, so, and you know when they're making them, you know when they're not, you know how many there are. So it's transparent. Transparency is a big thing. But right, something like Bitcoin, ultra scarce. There's literally only a certain amount of them that exist or will ever exist, or Bitcoin Cash, I should say.
Hmm.
Both of them, I guess. But yeah.
All right. Durability. Next one. It's another basically no brainer, right? You can't really destroy it
Hmm.
for the most part. Gold's pretty good, but again, something that exists in the mind of a computer. So long as we have technology, that's going to be even better. General acceptability. So as of right now, that's the one that
Yeah.
that it needs to get into.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree. That's I mean, I would almost say that is like a secondary feature built on top of the original. So it's like, which one's going to be most acceptable? Probably the one that meets all of the other ones the best. You would think, but then you have the problem of information where you've got a whole lot of people, a whole lot of very rich, powerful people who don't want crypto to catch on. You don't. If you're the Federal Reserve, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare because someone has made a money better than yours. We've been the reserve currency for 80 years, and now there's a better one, or at least a lot of people are starting to think there's a better one. So that's a nightmare. So that's where you get a lot of propaganda saying it's a scam, it's a bubble, it's this and that. Maybe they're right. I don't think they are, but that's what I mean is that you've got powerful forces battling to try to tell the people, and let's be honest, most people are just, oh, what did the news say today? So
I
they're
mean,
not
I
reading the
mean,
white papers.
I
So
mean, most people just go along with what the status quo is, right? That's
hmm
nothing new. That's not a revolutionary statement, whatever, right? Like the vast majority of people just kind of do what they're told. Most people want to do what they're told.
hmm
That's what a sense of purpose is. What else? And one other thing about general acceptability, uh, that is probably going to be the last thing that is ever acquirable by any sort of currency, I would say, right? I mean, you kind of have to have all of these other factors to get to that level. So the fact that crypto doesn't have that right now, I would say probably isn't blaring red alarms like danger.
yeah. It's a long process to get there, and honestly, hey, if people want to just hold off and not accept it for a while, that's fine with me because I'll be able to make more money, put more in it, and then eventually, hopefully it goes up. But I mean, right now, Bitcoin at 100,000 is kind of insane. Um, and there is a thing with Bitcoin that it does happen every 4 years. And if you were to look at the charts, there's a peak every 4 years, and it's usually anywhere from double to 8 times what it previously peaked at. And the reason for that, I think, is built into the algorithm. It's something called the halving equation. Now, this is an interesting point, is that what's built into Bitcoin is, I said earlier, there's currently about 19 point something million Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million. By mining Bitcoin, and by mining I mean approving the transactions in the way we described earlier, you get paid in Bitcoin to do that. And you
Right.
actually create new Bitcoin by doing that. So if I'm a miner, say, and I'm creating new Bitcoin every time I mine a transaction, how could there be a limit then? What happens when it gets to 21 million? How would the miners keep creating more? Or would the miners not create more, but then they'd have no incentive to keep mining because it costs energy, it costs money,
Yes.
it costs power. So how could there be a limit? And this is, I think, I gotta bring this up because I think it's the most genius part of it. Why would there be an incentive? How could there possibly be both a limit on how many Bitcoin ever exist and also the ability to create more Bitcoin by mining them?
What?
It's a beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
oh,
a
now,
it's
I I
You,
I know where it's going, right?
it's a beautiful mathematical genius equation, I think, and it's the halving equation. So every 4 years, what happens is the amount that you get paid for mining Bitcoin gets cut in half. So I think it started off, not sure on this, but say it started off at 25 Bitcoin. I think it was, or it might start off at 50. Say 50. Started off at 50 Bitcoin. Every time you mine a block, you get paid 50. That was in 2008. 4 years later, 2012. Now you get paid 25. 4 years later, 2016. Now you get paid 12 and a half. 2020, 6.25. And now 2024, 3.125. And if you were to look, it always peaks in the year following the halving. The reason why is because supply and demand. It gets back to that simple. There's people who are mining these bitcoins are creating the new supply. When the new supply gets cut in half, it starts to go up. When it starts to go up, it starts getting attention in the media. So the demand goes up. Demand goes up, supply goes down. That's why it goes up. Eventually, it goes too far up and then it comes back down. But it does follow a good pattern. So I do think it's probably another, 16, 20
But
years before it actually catches on.
couldn't there be an issue? If 19 million coins have already been mined, 21 million total will be mined. Couldn't there be an issue of it becomes more costly to mine than it is the reward you're getting?
With Bitcoin, yes. With Bitcoin, absolutely. So it's relying on the idea, it's relying on the fact that the Bitcoin becomes more valuable as it goes,
Right.
which I do think is a thing. And the thing about Bitcoin versus the dollar too, when we talked about divisible, this is another interesting point too. When we talk about divisible, the dollar has been the fiat currency, whether it's the dollar, peso, whatever, most divisible form of currency we've ever seen in human history by far. Because I can have, what does a book cost me? Maybe $20. But what does a page of that book cost me? Well, how many pages is the book? 200 pages? Well, then it cost me, what is that, 10 cents?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 10 cents per page. But what if it's 2,000 pages? Well, then it's 1 cent. You can literally get down to the cent. But once you get to the cent, you're out of luck. You're done. There's never been a physical thing that has been able, I mean, you could break it down to the atom, and but there's still a limit. With Bitcoin, there is no limit on, there is a limit on the high. There could only ever be 21 million. There is no limit on the low. There is no limit on one. You can have. I could trade you 1/1000th of a Bitcoin. I could trade you 1/1 millionth of a Bitcoin. I can trade you 1/10 to the 29th of a Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
There's no limit on how much you can divide it, and I think that's a huge one. Is because as long as Bitcoin keeps going up, which it's in the near future I think it will, that payment that people are getting for it is still going to be worth it because the buying power that's associated with that payment is going to keep going up.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's problems associated with that too. That's a very optimistic view, but
Yeah.
um,
Uh, the last one that Google had, and we did just trash the Google AI, but this is a pretty money list that it gave. The last one, well, there was limited supply. We talked about rarity, right? Would be stability of value is the last one. I think that one still right now has. You can see how stable it is, right? You can keep going back, keep tracing back, every transaction on the chain, and you can see what all accounts for where it is valued at right now.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so stability as far as like compared to
We're talking stability of crypto versus real fiat, real American dollars right now.
so that's a really good one actually because that is like the number one thing you always hear from everyone who's anti-crypto, which is it's volatile, which is the opposite of stability.
Yes.
It's too volatile. Very true. My next question would be volatile compared to what? Because Bitcoin compared to Ethereum is not volatile at all. It's actually very stable. Bitcoin compared to the US dollar, extremely volatile. Sometimes a year ago it was 15,000, now it's 105,000. 5 years ago it was 2,000. Or maybe longer than that. Eight
Mm.
years ago it was 2,000. So it's extremely volatile compared to the US dollar, but compared to Ethereum, it's always been pretty, pretty close. Compared to any other similar coin, it's always been pretty close. I would say, yes, it is volatile compared to the US dollar, but I would also say that is it Bitcoin that's volatile or is it the US dollar that's volatile? Also, is it simply just and I don't know the answer of either of these, but another one would be, is it simply just the growing pains of it's volatile based on how many people are interested in it, and how many people are interested in it tends to be, you know, come and go based on
Right.
whether it's in the news or not. So that is a good point though, and I think that's one of the big obstacles of why it's not. That's a big obstacle to widespread adoption is volatility, I think.
And those two almost go hand in hand. Like at least the stability goes with the adoption, because if the vast majority of people are using one specific coin, it's going to be very stable in value, right? It's and again, what are you comparing it to? What is it volatile against, right? Volatile against some arcane form of currency we no longer use, right? Or like some other coin, I guess. In the future, there could definitely be multiple cryptocurrencies that are accepted in the future. It's not just going to be like a one horse race, most likely. But the acceptability kind of, so they kind of play off each other, right? You need it to, in order for it to be stable, you need it to be accepted, but in order for it to get accepted, you need it to be somewhat stable.
Hmm. That's a good point. Yes, it's the old first phone problem, you call it, where it's like,
Yeah,
why would you buy the first phone? You can't use it for anything.
right.
But that is a good point, and I think the volatility is a problem for sure when it comes to acceptability because it also not even well, that's partially the problem. Another problem is the deflationary aspect. This is another thing I don't like about Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, to be fair, is it is deflationary. So it's like, so say hypothetically we were to get everyone was accepting Bitcoin, right?
Hmm.
I can go to Jewel or I can go to Walmart and I can
Yeah.
pay in Bitcoin. Why would I? Why would I pay in Bitcoin if I have US dollars? I know that my dollar is going to be worth less tomorrow than it is today. And I know that my Bitcoin is going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend
That's
my
just,
dollar. I'm not going to spend my Bitcoin. Why would I? Like, I know a guy, and great guy. He told me back in 2010, he was in a different country and they said they accepted Bitcoin. He bought a round of beers for him and his boys with a handful of Bitcoin, probably 3 or 4 Bitcoin.
hmm.
And it was like, at the time, it was like there were a couple bucks each. And he's like, yeah, I'll never do that again. Yeah, I just lost $500,000. I paid $500,000 for 6 beers or whatever. So if it is a deflationary currency, that's part of the problem is that then no one spends it. It's just at that point it's just a storage of wealth, which could I mean there's no
May,
value in a storage of wealth. There's only
I
a value in a
mean,
medium of exchange.
maybe then there would be deflation and inflationary currencies.
Ooh, okay. So you've got one. Ah, that's good. So you got one
You have the one inflationary
designed to be
currency.
deflationary.
You have one for inflation designed to be used and spent because it's not going to be worth it as much as it is tomorrow. Then you have one designed for deflation where you do know that it's going to be worth more than it is tomorrow.
What about something
One's
like
an investment. One is a usage of, you know, currency essentially,
oh,
a transactional.
okay. This is all right. This is good. Okay, this is mind blowing actually. Because think about it, it's kind of what we have now. What we have right now is you get paid in dollars, and then if you can afford to, you spend whatever you got to spend, and then whatever you have left over, some people put in a savings account. I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of putting in the stock market, putting in something that's going to. It's kind of what we have now. Stocks are kind of the deflationary, or maybe real estate, or maybe Bitcoin is kind of the deflationary. The U.S. dollar is kind of the inflationary. U.S. dollar encourages you to spend. All these other assets, they're called, are encouraging you to hold and not sell. Like don't
Hmm.
get rid of them, save them. That is a problem with Bitcoin. Whereas you're not going to spend it, you're going to save it because it's going to keep going up in value in theory.
Yeah, I'd
Do
never
you have
I
a
yeah.
combined thing where maybe Bitcoin Cash, something like that? One of them is meant for spending, the other one is meant for saving.
Right. I mean,
Seems genius.
or maybe there's many deflationary currencies, essentially replacing stocks, right?
Hmm.
If you think, all right, I have 100 credits, whatever, of the inflationary currency, right? And I think that this business is a good idea, right? I want to fund rockets to Mars. I want to fund, whatever. I give them that currency. They give me back their, you know, digital currency, their deflationary currency, essentially as a stock, which then should only ever go up in value if other people buy into it.
Yeah. No, this is genius too because I mean, one thing that we have, one of the problems is that right, we have an inflationary currency. What's the fundamental problem with an inflationary currency? I don't think there is one. If a currency is designed to be inflationary, okay, eventually it's going to run out. The problem is that people don't know that it's designed to be a large percentage of people don't know that it's designed to be an inflationary currency. And so imagine you had a system where it's just taught in schools. It's accepted. A lot of the times the inflationary aspect of the dollar is kind of hidden from the average person, right?
Inflation is supposedly the hidden tax.
The invisible tax.
Yeah.
And but it's designed to be. You don't want you want people putting their money in a savings account, right? You want to. But what if there was a system where it was two, it was on a blockchain, there was two, and it was not there was nothing hidden about it. It was hey, this one's easy to spend. This one will grow in value if you save it. So keep
Right.
enough in your, it's a savings versus a checkings.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is for checking, but if you have extra, put it in this one because this one is going to be savings. There you go. I think that
Did,
solves a lot of problems
did
right
we
off the bat.
did we just do it? Chat. We were
I
not
mean,
planning on getting here, but we've arrived here.
as far especially on a blockchain is especially important because if it's just real life, it's like well then who knows what like everyone wants money, everyone wants U.S. dollars, but on a blockchain it'd be transparent. A combination of two blockchains where this one is not pegged to anything, this one is for spending, and it's going to be worth. And here's the what you can do on a blockchain is you can say 4 or 5 years ahead of time, hey, on this date, say it's 2020, December 2024 right now. In December 2028 or December 2030, this coin is not going to be worth anything, but for the 6 months leading up to that, everyone is able to trade 100, say, USDs for one, whatever, Bitcoin Cash.
Mm-hmm.
It's on you. You got to convert it. And then once you convert it, we're going to do it over again. So it's like it starts off $1 buys you a hamburger. After 10 years, it's going to inflate, or maybe 50 years. It's going to inflate over 50 years, and eventually it's going to cost you $100 for a hamburger. But around that time, we're going to hit the peak, and then we're going to convert back to a dollar. Then it's going to be $1 for a hamburger again, and we're going to keep doing that over and over. And it's on you to convert your currency over. I feel like that kind of works, as long as it's open, transparent.
Yeah, so long as people know, right? And that's were you ever taught in school? I took finance college, so we learned this in finance school. But before college, did you ever learn how the monetary system works in our country?
No, and I think I am part of the reason why I'm very interested in it now is because I didn't then. And it was like, I don't think I learned anything even through college, not even just high school, through college. Learned very, very little about the monetary system. I picked it up as like a hobby almost because of, dabbling around in crypto and tech stocks and stuff like that. And started going down the rabbit hole. And it was like, part of the reason it was mind blowing to me and so interesting was because it was like, I was going in thinking I did pretty well in school. And so I feel like I got most of the things figured out, but I just can't figure out how come I'm poor and then all these other guys are doing doing good. And so, but when I started, I was like, holy shit, yeah, they never taught us anything like this in school. It's like you would think that'd be one of the first, that'd be like the main thing, but it's not.
Is that part of the planning of our education system? And maybe this is a little teaser into what may be coming up here.
Yep, I like where you're going. But yeah, definitely is a problem with the education system. Um, and next episode we'll make sure we get a full, you know, deep dive into it. But I think the education system, it's not meant to make you smart. I don't think it's not meant to make you understand how things work. I think it's meant to make you obedient, disciplined, good worker. Kind of, I would almost say, scared a little. It's kind of meant to make you scared.
Monolithic.
If you're making decisions based on fear rather than ambition, then you'll make a really good office worker or a really good assembly line worker or a really good field worker. You'll make because I'm not going to do anything on a line because I'm scared of losing my my comfortability that I have now. I think that's what the from K through PhD. I think that's what the education system sets you up for, and that'll be a real good discussion. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to.
that'll be a good one. Maybe we can end this one here. Education on the blockchain.
I'm a huge fan. I got a few. I've actually got a few.
Because go on.
Well, I've got a few like real, just underground kind of education coins. One of them is called EDU. It's like an education coin. But I do have I have a very good. We'll go into the weeds on this one on the next one. But I think that is a huge application for it because think about it, like we talked about this episode, it's a truth machine.
The truth machine, right? If people agree on this is what actually happened in the past, you no longer have whitewashed versions of history, right?
Well, let me put it this way too. All of the things we just went through the whole list. All of the things, all of the properties that determine a good currency, right? Durability, measurability, scarcity, all of that. Does that not also apply to the college degree or to the diploma or to graduating sixth grade, to your report card? Does it not apply to the education system? All of those properties, I would say, apply. It's got to be portable, meaning it's got to be well recognized by everyone so that I can bring my grades to this company or this company or this company, and they all see it and they all recognize it as being good. It's got to be scarce. This class was really hard, but I passed it. Not that many people passed it, but I did. That means I'm better than all those other people for this position. All of those properties apply to education as well. I'd be very surprised, actually, if 30 years from now we aren't on blockchain education by then. I mean, I hope we are. If we're not, I think it's a problem, actually, because it's a much better system than what we have now.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get into that system next time. Maybe we'll solve the education crisis like we solved the currency crisis today.
All right. Till next time.
So we can just talk now, right?
Yeah, stop recording.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that was one of it wasn't maybe the quote unquote best, most interesting one, but the fact that we actually arrived somewhere